Welcome to the Programmes Dialogue. This is a series of events in preparation of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, one of the partnerships under preparation for Horizon Europe, the new framework program for research and development. This series of events is facilitating a dialogue between ERA-Nets with their successful formats and with their experiences of the last 10 years and national program owners and program managers. The event series is hosted by the joint programming platform Smart Energy Systems. Please be aware that the events are provided on our YouTube channel as a live stream and as a recording, resulting in the fact that whatever you contribute in the chat or via live talk will be public. The Clean Energy Transition Partnership is going to be a transnational joint programming initiative to boost and accelerate the energy transition, building upon regional and national RDI funding programs. Therefore, the Programmes Dialogue intends to create joint knowledge about the most powerful and successful formats and tools to promote research, technology development, and innovation. In a mutual learning and capacity building exercise, we want to learn about good practices, successful activities, effective approaches, but also about the things we tried to do and that did not work out. For this, we want to create together with you an open and interactive atmosphere. The dialogue events are organized in a SureFix mode every Friday at 11 a.m. on this YouTube channel. Each event will present one or a group of initiatives, and we have already a dense schedule until mid-March. However, if you want to present your program or initiative and you are not on the list yet, please let us know and we will find a slot for you. Each of the events will have the same format of presentation blocks of about 10 to 15 minutes, highlighting a specific topic or aspect, followed by a question and answer and discussion session of about 10 minutes. If you have a question, please use the chat function in the YouTube channel. We will bring it up. You want to get on stage and discuss live with the speakers? Send your request in the chat. We will bring you up on stage. The process to develop the Clean Energy Transition Partnership has come a long way. We have started with a stakeholder groups dialogue with all the set-plan initiatives and ERA-Nets, developing thematic RDI challenges in spring and summer last year. Based on these inputs in a country's dialogue, the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda was developed and launched in a set-plan conference side event in November 2020. Now we want to bring together all the partners, funding institutions, ministries, program managers and program owners that are ready to contribute to the implementation of this new joint programming initiative. The number of countries and regions joining has been growing and growing over the last months, and there are still new partners coming on board. A great core team of enthusiastic experts from different organizations all over Europe is committed to bring this initiative forward. Enjoy the Programmes Dialogue, and now let us introduce the speakers of today. Welcome everybody to the third event of the Programmes Dialogue. It's great to have the great people from the Geothermica network with us today, and I welcome very much our speakers Gudni Johansson from Orkustoflun, Hjalti Pal Ingolfsson from the Geothermica office, Gerdy Brembroek from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, Paul Ramsak from RVO in the Netherlands, and Stefan Schreiber from Projektgeber Jülich in Germany. Hi everyone, I hope you're doing fine. I know that you had a lot of things going on in parallel in the last days, and you still could make it possible to keep this time slot and this presentation today. Thank you very much for your efforts and for being able to keep this agreed meeting. We're very happy that we have you today. I also want to introduce my co-moderators. In a double role today is Gerdy Brembroek, who is supporting us as a co-moderator here already from the first event on, and is also involved in the Geothermica network, and Fredrik Lundström from the Swedish Energy Agency. Hi, Fredrik. Gerdy, Fredrik, many things are going on. We are preparing the Geothermica and Smart Energy Systems joint co-funded, no, not co-funded, but joint call for this year. So you are very busy, and the Geothermica team is very busy. Thanks for having the time to support me here in the studio today. Thank you also to our studio and support team. That is Nicolas Reschen. Many of you know him from the preparatory work for the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. Nicolas has changed organization and has joined us here at the Ministry, Austrian Ministry of Climate Action in Austria, and has become part of our team in the ministry now. Also Arno, my colleague, I think he is not around today. Christian Spanik from Net Producer, who is really taking care in a great way of all this technical stuff and enabling us with this new format together with Dirk Kukers from Tonwerk Eschweiler in Germany. Thanks a lot. So after this short introduction, we are ready to start, and our first session is going to be presented by Gudni Johansson, and it's the session where you, Gudni, will tell us about the Geothermica network in general, what the goals are and how you set it up. Before we start, Gudni, can you tell us in a few sentences what is your organizational background and your personal background? What's also your technical background?
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to have this opportunity to have this dialogue. I think this is a very important part of the work, that we try to connect together the different organizations and try to learn from each other. And so this is a very positive thing. I'm Gudni Johansson. I'm the Director General of the Orkustofnun, which is the National Energy Authority in Iceland. I'm the Icelandic representative to CETP-Plan, and I have then also been active in, of course, as a coordinator in Geothermica, but also in the implementation working group for the geothermal and for the support unit for that one as well. So geothermal was not on the agenda when I first took seat in the CETP-Plan. Since then, a lot of things have happened, and very positive things, and we see that geothermal is now on the agenda as we experience today.
Gudni, you're speaking from Iceland, and we saw in the window of Hjalti Pal before that the sun is just rising in Iceland. Is that correct? And the other thing, you're talking about geothermal. Geothermal energy, is that an important energy carrier in Iceland?
Yes, because in Iceland, about more than 90% of all homes are heated with geothermal, and about 30% of our electricity generation also comes from geothermal. So geothermal is a very important part of our our energy system, but also Icelandic experts have been very active around the world in geothermal projects. So we can say that this is also very large part of our cooperation with the world around us on energy and climate issues.
Very good. So we can learn a lot, I think, from Iceland on this, because you are working very intense with this technology. Gudni, Geothermica, you are, I think, the initiator or one of the initiators, I guess. So how did you set your goals with the network, and what is the basic setup of it? Please start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Michael. Now I have the first slide. We have, this is just telling the story of the agenda meeting today. And we have, of course, always from the beginning been very confident that geothermal energy can play a major role in the reduction of CO2 emissions in Europe. And that was probably the prime engine when we started to work within Europe and link with other European countries with interest in the geothermal sector, because from earlier work we knew that about 20 to 25% of heating in Europe could be provided by geothermal, and that would be a very important building stone trying to reshape the energy system of the continent. And so geothermal, it provides a reliable baseload, both for power when we have high enthalpy sources like Iceland, Italy, and Greece, and Turkey, for instance. But also in most countries we have lower temperature sources with maybe between 70 and 100 degrees, where we can provide energy for the district heating. And that is very important because heat is a very important part of the energy system. Some people say that heat is 6 times more important than electricity. I don't know about that, but heat is very often forgotten when people are talking energy issues. And some people think that every part of the system should be solved by electricity to provide all services to homes. But looking at the amount of energy needed for that, we see that this is a little bit unrealistic, but it's also not cost effective compared to using the sources directly. So this is very important. So geothermal energy, it's an indigenous source of energy, and this can contribute to the European security of supply. Next, please. So the geothermal ERA-Net was the first work we did, starting in 2012. And we had the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, and Switzerland, together with Iceland, that initiated this. And we got more countries to join us. So we had 12 partners from 11 countries in the end. And of course, we had the emphasis on minimizing the fragmentation of the sector, building up this common European know-how, and also contribute to framework and policy, because this is a very important aspect in countries which do not have had geothermal utilization before. Sometimes things end up under the very heavy mining law, and then we come nowhere. So this is a very important part of our efforts. Now, after this work, we got this network going, and then we planned for a co-fund action, which was called the GEOTHERMICA in 2017 started. It was for accelerating geothermal deployment in Europe and of course around the world as well. And we had 20 program owners and managers from 16 countries and regions. And in this activity, we have 2 calls already active. and one more in the making in cooperation with Smart Energy Systems. So the main theme of this work has been that the main member state engagement and mutual trust, and continued strong emphasis on widening the consortium, of course in Europe, getting more and more countries with us, countries that didn't believe from the beginning that they could benefit from geothermal. But we have also been looking outside Europe, and the Department of Energy has now joined us as well. Next, please. If we look at the state of play here for Geothermica, and we have the countries involved, I won't list them all, but you see them there. There are most Western European countries, and even countries where geothermal has traditionally not been on the map, like Denmark and Ireland, of course, together with countries like Italy and Iceland with more a longer history in this. And from this, we have 20 funding organizations from 16 countries that have been participating in our calls. And we still have support from the EC for Geothermica as a part of the ERA-Net co-fund from starting in 2017. Next, please. Now, we have always been very careful about two things. One is that we don't act alone. The member states, they have to rely on cooperation with industry and research. But we have also learned through our process that the member states have to be able to maneuver and operate protected from industry and research in making their programs, so that that is a very important part of the governance structure of building up trust from the funding countries and funding organizations, that the beneficiaries of these projects are not in any way in control of how the money is handled and distributed in the end. And it's also very important that everybody has been brought along, that the member states are all active in some way, and that they can rely that there will be resources, projects coming their way if they contribute to the system, which is very important to make everybody interested in taking part. Next, please. Two calls have yet been concluded. There's the call one, which was the co-funded call. We funded 8 projects. They were of varying sort. We had using geothermal to produce food, and how to fit that into the circular economy. But we had also how to connect to cities, and to also utilize geothermal where we don't have the high quality sources that we have in other countries like Ireland and Denmark. And we've also been involved in heat storage, so the storage of heat, and there we can, of course, link very beautifully to heating and cooling and other activities, because certain heat storage can be a building stone in a energy system where the different energy carriers and sources can communicate. And we've also been looking at special issue like the seismic, which is very important, and so on. So there is a big menu of projects, and to try to cast light on the different aspects, and this is all to accelerate the implementation and to make it possible and link to the government and decision makers that can provide options for these projects for geothermal use in the future. Next, please. So this is very exciting then, now that we have made 2 calls on our own, but the call 3 we plan to have in joint together with the GPP, Smart Energy Systems. And this is very important that we are not building silos and staying within our silos all the time. We are trying to reach out, connect to other activities, which are of course related, like geothermal and heating and cooling transition. This goes very well hand in hand, and we can get a nice range of activities that look at the whole value chain. Next, please. So if we look at the third call, what we see as the focus area, we of course want to develop innovative solutions or new concepts for one or more of the following challenges. It's the climate neutral resources for heating and cooling, a resource efficient and sustainable distribution, storage and utilization of heating and cooling, and then integration of heating and cooling in the local and regional energy system. And we plan to open for calls in May 2021, and that the first project will start in September 2022. And between that, we have, of course, the conventional call mechanism that we have been developing, and the infrastructure that is also already in place for this. Next, please. So if we look at these geothermal, we have main messages here is, firstly, geothermal energy can play a major role in the reduction of CO2 across Europe. And geothermal energy is firmly on the European agenda, and it's one of the key technologies in the energy transition. Heating and cooling directly from the source are generally cost-effective. The Icelandic example shows this very clearly. I'm paying about a little more than 2 cents per kilowatt hour for heating of my house. Of course, this has cost a lot of buildup of infrastructure over many years. But we see in some from some even higher officials that they believe that electrification of all services and systems should be in place. But in my meaning, this is not the answer. We should avoid electrifying when we can find shortcuts, like connecting the geothermal source to the heating of the house. Substantial direct member state financing, and it is built on engagement, long-term networking, control of the member states, so they can control how their funds are being spent, and also on mutual trust, which of course has to be built up over time. And we have to advance on different levels, not only with these calls, but we have to communicate our data, technologies, policies, regulatory frameworks, markets, and so on. So joint activities, that is, our activities besides the call, are of equal importance to the funding itself, because only funding and project, we also have to put up the engine for progressing and advancing and accelerating. And the biggest asset of the Geothermica is the 8 years of cooperation experience, which has been built up nicely over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Gudny, for this first introductory session. One question, as you are pointing out, Geothermica can play a major role. How is it with your network? Was it growing very much during the last years, or is it more a stable network from the beginning on? Is it a group of countries that is specifically interested in this kind of technology, or do you also recognize some, let's say, movement or development that more and more countries become interested in this option?
Yeah, that is our meaning. Of course, this takes time, but we can see that countries like Denmark and Norway coming on in recent years, and we also have a very good cooperation with the Swedish Energy Authority. So I think that this will gradually develop, and more countries are looking at this as an option. And we can see that if we look at research programs in individual countries like Sweden, we can see that geothermal has become a major issue there over the last years. So I think that we are going to see a movement here.
Yeah, no, that's true, and thank you, Gudny, for a great presentation. We are following closely, of course, what you do in Geothermica, and we are happy to be able to collaborate with you more now. As you said, it is an important topic, and I'm not in the expertise position to confirm how much it is increasing in terms of focus, but I know both in terms of the sources for heating, but also, of course, geothermal storage is an important topic when it comes to how we can handle seasonal storage and other aspects in our integrated energy system.
I see some questions in the chat, and I propose, because I see they are very much related to the call, and I guess we don't have a session particularly on the call, so maybe we take them right away. So what type of funders in the call applied research and innovators, or also basic research?
Mostly these are projects with higher TRL. So, but this is research and industry together. We can say are probably. But of course, innovators. Well, they are also often within the industry. So we have those three pillars with us.
And from the funder side, do you have organizations that are specifically funding basic research or lower TRLs, or do you have mainly the funders that are on the higher TRL end?
Yeah, I think that of course within their interests in our program, I don't know what they do at home, but their main interest is often a little bit towards the higher TRLs than the lower TRLs. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I confirm that many of us are funding higher TRL and more the applied research than the fundamental research. But projects can also have a mix of both basic research and applied research, but most of them are on the applied side, that's for sure. And we also have demonstrations in our network.
We have another question that is, what is the share of contracted funding in the calls in comparison to the allocated funding? I think that goes in the direction, are you able to spend the money that you are providing? Most times this is not only a question of general interest in the funding, but also in how balanced the applications are in a reflection of what different partners are providing. So are you struggling with the balance between the funding and the application for different countries, or is it working well? And what mechanisms did you find to balance that?
Yeah, I think that of course this is a very delicate question, because you can end up with some in a cul-de-sac with your call process. But what we have seen is that the support from the countries has been so good that the countries have contributed to the funding, but they have also kept reserve funds, so that they can, if their member, if the researchers or the applicants from their country are somehow have consumed the country's part in the total financing, they more often add to the funding. So we have had funding coming in where the countries have seen their interest to help in the balancing, rather than letting good projects die.
Very good. Thanks for these answers. We don't have any additional questions at the moment, and I think we should move over to the next session, which is presented by Hjalti Pál Ingolfsson, and it is about the Geothermica office and which services you are providing to your partners and how you are organized. Hjalti Pál, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Yes, let me just go through that presentation, and I want to start actually with let me see, actually with the governance of the project as a whole, and where Geothermica office basically is placed in that governance structure. On the top of the structure, we have the executive board, which is the decision-making body of Geothermica. It has one representative of all the members in the board there. Of course, there is a very strong emphasis on consensus and trust and fairness of all matters that we need to take decision on. But if we come to a place where we have to take a vote on certain issues, the voting right is relative to the funding contribution of the partners. This is mainly to do with what project to fund in the end, when we have a decision on funding and so on. This is mainly where we basically take votes, and we have been very lucky with having a very good cooperation, a very big trust in the group, and we have never had any serious issues with finalizing that. So that has been working quite well. Then, of course, we have the coordinator, which is then responsible for the overall operation of the project and of the network. The coordinator is also the face or contact point to the EC for the co-fund part and all that important things. And as Guðni mentioned earlier, the coordinator of Geothermica is also coordinator of Deep Geothermal Implementation Working Group. So that there is a connection definitely there between. Then we have the Geothermica office. The Geothermica office plays a big role in this, being kind of the network's engine. We are a central point for all partners to work with. We do the day-to-day operations, and we also play a major role both in the calls, of course, and the additional activities. And we basically can say that we have two parallel streams in our work. We have the call operations, which are now 3 in making, or the third one is in making. And that call operation is, of course, divided down to different work packages, as you can see on the picture there. And the member state partners, or the partners of Geothermica, are responsible for different parts in this group. And then we have the other very equally important part, which is the knowledge, strategy, and support, which is led by RVO and PTG in Germany. And we will have a special introduction on that later on in this show. So this is the overall structure of the governance of Geothermica. It's quite lean and quite effective and flexible in many ways. We have a consortium agreement in place, which is mainly due to the fact that we have a co-fund action, and of course we need a consortium agreement there. But that also includes, rules of the game, which is very helpful for us in running this network. The Geothermica office, if I just go a little bit more into details with that, it has 4 main activities. It's to assist the coordinator in all the aspects of running the project, of administration and things like that. It supports the external and internal communication, both to the partners themselves and to, of course, the applicants and the general public and overall. We operate in the Geothermica office the call secretariat, and we support the initiative of additional activities, like I said before. So Georg is where I'm sitting. I'm the manager of Georg. We are subcontracted by Orkustofnun to run the secretariat, basically, of this Geothermica office, because we run the day-to-day operation and basically lead the work there. But together with us, we have very important partners. This is Rannis for the call secretariat. They provide the platform for the calls, for the submission system, and also the evaluation of the calls. This is also included in the system. And they are responsible for hiring the evaluators. And then we have RVO and PTG. RVO is handling the project monitoring. When we have funded project, they follow up on the project, and RVO together with PTG lead the strategy and support and knowledge package of the additional activities. So just to have a face to this team, you can see here the group. We have Orkustofnun and Georg on the left side, and then the support team for the special tasks on the right side. I think you know most of these faces, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much, just to show you. And then we have the internal and communication and the support tool that we use within the office. Of course, it's very important for a group like this to be able to communicate in different ways, and I'm happy to say that even though we have had a very difficult year last year, we have not been able to meet as many times as we want face to face. We have been very successful in using technology, like we all, I guess, and we have used Teams and SharePoint for meetings. But in a normal year, we think it's very important to meet face to face, and we have met 2 to 4 times on physical meetings. Of course, the annual meeting every year, and then specially dedicated meeting for additional activities and workshops. This has been important to basically build up trust and friendship in the group, which is always very important in these things. Then we have monthly telecons of all partners, where we actually rotate the chairing of those meetings and note-taking to engage all the partners in the group to follow up and to have an active role there. I think that is very, very good. Then we have a weekly meetings between Georg and Orkustofnun, just on the operational issues, and then ad hoc meetings as needed. So that has been running quite smoothly. Just a brief on the call text and things like that. The call text is quite broad. The initial call text was writing was led by DTEC in Switzerland, with, of course, a strong input from all partners. And that basic call text has then be reused, basically, because it's quite generic, with, of course, adaptation to each and every call. It's a very much bottom-up approach with higher TRL, as we have discussed a little bit before. And we also included this Annex 1, which lays out the specific rules of each and every funding agency and funding program. Of course, in a cooperation like this, and a funding scheme like an ERA-Net is, there are many moving parts. So there are many variables that we have to take care of. And it's very good to communicate that to partners or to applicants that they need to contact their own funding or national contact point and make sure that they follow all those rules and do not end up in troubles. The Geothermal Executive Board makes the final saying of the call text every time, and we combine or bind the partners together with a letter of commitments. So basically, those are the ones that bind us together to each call, in addition to the consortium agreement, of course, to play the rules. We have then, the responsibility of communicating the call and the rules and regulations is within the national funding agencies, and the applicants are encouraged to use that. RANIS provides the system and also the evaluation. And we have been able to communicate quite well, I think. We have used events and so on to spread the news of a new call coming up, and we have been quite lucky with that. The call text is usual. I'm not going to go into details here, but we have this regular two-step approach where you have the basically the evaluation or eligibility check on the first state, and then full proposal on the second state. There is a possibility, if you have eligibility trouble after the first stage, to adapt the proposal a bit and fix those issues before you submit the final full proposal. So the plan is like said here. You have this usual stream of work. I'm using here the ongoing call now just as an example, and so it's quite usual, and I can answer questions on that afterwards. The operational funds, of course, we have there is no such thing as free lunch, so we need to somehow finance the operation. What we do is we try to calculate or find out what the operational cost is. So we require every partner to hand in a report on the workload and the monthly rate and the travel cost by partners each year and activities like that. And then the means for covering this cost is the unit cost, of course, from the co-fund project, a reasonable in-kind contribution of all partners, and then a small part of the top-up was deducted to cover the rest or the remaining implementation costs. So just to go down to, briefly go through the key successes of the operation or how the work is, so that a lean and a flexible and a solution-driven governance is very important in a cooperation like this to find ways to solve any things that come up. Willingness to learn from others and to help one another for the benefit of all is also very, very important, and we have been able to work with that. And then, of course, the trust and fairness, like everyone have more or less said, is also a very much of a key for a successful operation of this. So thank you. That's basically what I wanted to say.
I've taken a few notes and have some questions about the organizational structure. You are working at GEORG, you said, and what kind of organization is GEORG? You're subcontracted by the funding agency of Iceland, I understand. Is that correct?
We are subcontracted by Orkustofnun to run this office, and we are geothermal research cluster. So we basically, our work is to combine research, industry and public authorities. We are kind of a hub for geothermal in Iceland, and actually in Europe we are quite often running project offices for big projects like Geothermica. So this is one of the things that we do, and we see ourselves as kind of a glue between different partners, has a hub for networking and cooperation. And this is true.
We are very important. But how do you avoid conflict of interest? I mean, as you are a research organization yourself, you play a very central role in this network, while others are applying for the funds. But I guess you are not able to apply for the funds.
No, of course not. Of course not. We make sure that we fulfill all those rules. Of course, we do not apply for funds, and we do not have any say on anything with regards to any decisions of selecting projects and so on. This is all done in a transparent and official way through evaluators and through the executive board. And we, of course, do not apply, or our network as Georg does not, of course, not apply to any of these calls of Geothermica and so on.
Understood. Yes. And the call secretariat, I understand, is separated. So this is run by another organization. I forgot the name. So you have shared responsibilities, that I understand.
Yeah.
What kind of organization is this? Is this a funding organization, or is it also a kind of consulting?
Rannís is the funding agency of Iceland, basically. So
that's the funding.
Orkustofnun is the energy authority, which actually does not run the funds. But Rannís is the Icelandic representative for funding, and they are. You could say that Geothermica office basically is a kind of a virtual office. It's a combination of course, Georg as the main hub, but also it includes Rannís and PTG and RVO as main partners to run these different activities. And
so interestingly, the funding agency is also a funding agency that is leading the knowledge sharing tasks, which of course is possible, but interesting, because this could also be done by a consultant or so, but that's a funding agency, right? The German funding agency.
Yeah, I think that this is actually a quite good way to do it, and it includes the partners of Geothermica. It creates the network and the equal importance of this additional activity, like we said before. This is only
more directed to your funding partners and not so much directed to the project applicants or project people.
Yeah, it actually it's both, but mainly through the project partners. Yes, they do these activities, but of course engage the project. And we have not set any or Geothermica has not put any applications on the projects to take part in a, like some other ERA-Net have done in some kind of a knowledge sharing network or something like that. It's more that we want to. There is a request for them to take part if we have a combined meetings or something like that, but we do not require them to take part in this and as much as they do.
That means I understand correctly that when you talk about knowledge sharing, that means it's mainly a knowledge share exchange between the funding partners, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, in many ways it is. It's quite a lot of that, and that is basically the additional activities we foresee is to streamline the expectations and activities of the often policy making partners in different European countries to make sure we all pull the wagon in the same direction.
While we are preparing the questions from the chat, Fredrik and Gerdi, do you have additional things? One observation that I made was that there is a shared responsibility in call text writing. Fredrik, that's interesting, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, and I mean, there's a lot of things that all of us that are working with this type of collaborations could learn from. Now I also, since I have gotten the privilege to work together with you the latest months, it's interesting to learn also. I think That's very good. I have one question, and maybe it relates also a little bit back to what Gudny was explaining in the beginning, but I remember in one of Gudny's last slides, he said the major asset is the 8 year of experience. And if I take that from the network, if I take that asset and I think of your role, Hjalti, and what you have described, and also I'm a little bit curious, maybe this is also more on a national perspective, but from an Icelandic perspective, this is an important topic for you, and you collaborate on a European and international level. With this network that you have, what do you think is the most important thing that you can achieve with that? And on the other hand, from the international partners' point of view, what is the most important thing with that network?
I think that the most important thing is this critical mass we are creating, and we are putting geothermal very much on the map for Europe, and more and more countries are coming into the group, and this is I would say the most important thing is to make sure that we all work together on the same goals, and the things we have achieved during these 8 years of collaboration are quite good, I would say. When we started, there had been some interest groups like industry and research had been pushing very much for geothermal. It had not been too successful in the European sort of landscape for funding and so on. But when the ERA-Net started, then the member states also started to push and show that there was a real interest from government level in Europe to explore geothermal and to understand the importance of geothermal. Of course, not only for electricity, but also for heat, and probably more importantly for heat in Europe. At least mainland Europe, and that push has done a lot. The same with just understanding the regulatory aspects and learning from each other regarding how to best practice in licensing and so on. This is one of the biggest challenges for geothermal, is the licensing process and the governance in different countries, and this is a very important thing for the European project to work on the geothermal licensing in different countries, and this is also important, risk mitigations and seismic as well. So I think that the collaboration of these partners and the effort, the friendship, and the trust between those is actually a crucial part in taking this forward and utilizing the opportunities geothermal can apply in Europe.
Thank you very much for this discussion. Thanks also for the technical support and our team to reminding me that we have to look on the time a little bit. I saw that we have a very, I think, interesting topic in the chat that I think would use too much time at the moment, but I would ask Chiara if you would be ready, because I think it's a very important topic, to bring this up to you in the live talk in the studio at the end of this event, because I think this is something that we could really have some discussion on. So if you would agree, it would be nice if you would send us your email address via the chat or to Nicholas, and we will provide you with a link for the audience microphone and take you on the stage at the end of the session if you want. Maybe we can take still one or the other question. There was one question on how the costs for call coordination covered. Maybe we can take this in the chat if possible, if someone could answer this together with Nicholas maybe in the chat, and we go on with the live talk with the next session, because we have to be a little bit careful with the timing already. Thank you, Hjalti, for your presentation, and the next session is dedicated to the topic of monitoring. I guess that's
project monitoring, or is it also a monitoring, strategic monitoring of the initiative? This is something that we will learn now from Gerdi. Please, Gerdi, start your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. I will be focusing on the project monitoring, really. So if we have the funded projects, how do we go about in Geothermica to follow up on their progress and to create maximum added value out of those projects? First of all, we have aimed to keep that monitoring on the general project level as simple as possible, and we're building on the national procedures there. Key cornerstones of our approach are that the Geothermica office organizes the processes and are the administrative hub for the communication between the projects and Geothermica. We have half-yearly traffic light reporting, and you see at the left side of the slide, you see an example there, which shows that the stage of the work packages and the progress in the work packages. And in this case, there is something to consider in work package 1. Then we also organize a midterm review with our large projects, and we have also organized a midterm project update meeting for small projects. And very importantly, we have also assigned a country contact, the country contact of the Geothermica funding organization in the country of the project lead is a first contact for each and every project, and will follow up with the project on any issues that may arise. So there is a direct contact, and this contact is also engaged to be at project meetings whenever possible. Next slide, please. This briefly shows what it looks like. We have a project consortium in the green rectangle at the bottom of the slide with the project partners that are implementing a granted Geothermica project. And at the top side of the slide, we have the Geothermica co-fund consortium that is consisting of the national funding agencies that have contracts, of course, with the project partners in their countries. And this leads to the system that you see on the next slide of the workflows. Of course, the national funding agencies, they are paying the project partners in their countries, so they need the national reporting to justify the funding, and those are the black arrows from the project partners in the countries to the national funding organizations in those countries. The red arrows represent the monitoring streams on the Geothermica integral project level, where the main coordinator of the project is reporting to Geothermica through a traffic light report, through a midterm report, and through a final report. And in between, there's also contact between this main coordinator and the assigned project Geothermica partner in the lead country of that project. Next slide, please. So a bit of detail on the midterm review. We've organized this for the large projects where the project presented themselves and their progress in half a day. It was attended by all relevant funding organizations and chaired by the lead country. We also had an external reviewer who was also the chair of the evaluation committee of the proposals, and the proposals got written feedback on what we've seen in that midterm evaluation. And besides the midterm evaluation for the large projects, we have also had project update meetings with the smaller projects, where we have reserved 2 hours per project, attended by all the relevant funding organizations and chaired again by the lead country. This was all in 2020, so it was online, and we've also been able to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the projects. Next slide, please. And it's important to know that many of those projects that we're working with are actually involving demonstrations or installations in the real world. So there are projects that need to drill a geothermal well. There are projects that are installing equipment to test a new connection for geothermal piping in the ground, but then above ground will be the tests. And these undertakings are challenging and depending on many circumstances in the outside world. When we're looking at the experiences of our monitoring approach, I think that the traffic light reports work well and we can build on good national practices in all the countries. As a group, we found the midterm review very valuable because it provides an update at a good time to implement actions that either optimize the outcome of the project, create more value, and it was also very timely because of COVID and the impact that such a lockdown has on projects that are operating in the real world. When we have our monthly Telcom meetings, the project status is a standing item on the agenda. Not always is it necessary to go into any details there, but it's there, and we are committed to thinking about it. And then, of course, it's also important that when challenges arise, that we have dedicated meetings. And then I also think that it has really paid out that we, as a Geothermica management team, have been interacting with these projects ourselves, because these upcoming issues, for example, with locations for geothermal drilling, are significant delays because of COVID. These we have been able to deal with because we were interacting with the projects quite intensively. We don't have any experience yet with finalizing projects because the Geothermica 1 projects, our first projects, will be finalized this year. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So are there any questions?
Thank you, Gerdy, for this presentation. I see that Frederick is back again. I don't know if you could follow the presentation, Frederick, because I don't have so many questions about the project monitoring, but you have, I think, also a lot of experience with this, but I don't know if you have any questions now, as I'm not, I don't know how much of the presentation you could see.
Yeah, no, I was able to follow the full presentation, and actually the monitoring is one of the parts I think is very interesting. My first question is, because I know we always have one challenge is to engage all our participants, all the funding partners, to be part of this process. If I understood correctly, you said you had 2 yearly traffic light meetings. In terms of preparation for each funding partner, what do they usually do for that meeting? And do all of them usually fulfill their commitment, or do you have to hunt them down a lot, or how does it work?
Well, when it comes to traffic lights reports, that's not a meeting, so so that's a bit simpler to get that finalized. This midterm review meeting, that has been a meeting, and there we have sat with all the funding agencies that were involved in the project, plus work package leads in the project, and I think that has proven doable and helpful. Traffic light reporting, it is really something to take seriously and keep a close eye on the ball. Let me put it like that, to make sure that we don't lose sight of any projects. It is, of course, all of us are interested to justify the funding to the projects, also on a national level, and to be able to justify that the integral project has to be in place. Be that as it may, it is something that you need to continuous that needs continuous attention, and it's easy to slip on the priority list.
Thank you very much. Very important input. I see we have a question here also from the chat. How do you foster impact of projects related to outputs of projects that you may follow in the monitoring?
Of course, we were still in this Geothermica 2.1 implementation phase, but most projects have a website where they publish their deliverables, so those kind of things are already in place from the side of the projects, and of course we also link to that on the Geothermica side. What we were planning to do, but what hasn't materialized yet, there is a large geothermal congress, the World Geothermal Congress, that would have been organized in 2020 and is now postponed till May 2021. And we thought that was a real, very promising event to put our Geothermica projects on the stage, as well as any large projects from Horizon 2020 that were also related to geothermal, and Geothermica office as a support. GEORG as a support to Geothermica and the implementation working group was organizing a stage for both the Geothermica projects and the Horizon 2020 projects. So those kind of things are within our reach because of our close ties between the implementation working group and Geothermica. And I think that this would have been a very good event to put them on the stage. And it will happen May this year now, but hopefully in person, but I'm not sure. I think that Hjalti, he might know more, but we're looking into that in such a way to link to geothermal events that are out there and try to put our project on the stage there.
Thank you very much, Gerdi. I think it might be the fact that we, in terms of timing, need to go on to the next point, but I will ask Michael if that's correct.
I agree, Fredrik. Very good, thanks. Very to the point with this Q&A session and little discussion, and we will go on with the next block of presentation that is about additional activities. So it's always important that we are not only setting up joint calls and financing projects, that also we do some additional activities for several reasons, and that's different from technology to technology or from network to network. And what is important in the geothermal world and what activities Geothermica has been doing the last years, we will hear now from Paul Ramsack and Stefan Schreiber. Please, Paul and Stefan. The only thing that I would like to ask you is really to stick perfectly to the timing, even try to be a little bit shorter, as your session is a little bit long according to our format, so that we have enough time for questions and answers. We are ready to listen.
Yeah, no worries here. Thank you very much, Michael. You already mentioned it, activities, maybe a little bit on Stefan and my position. We are leading this together. Stefan Schreiber from Germany, PTJ, and myself from RVO, Netherlands Enterprise Agency, which is part of the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy. We kept the name additional activities because we like the innovation, but in fact, you could say these are not additional activities. This is basically a work that is as important, if not even more important, than the joint calls we're organizing. Next slide, please. So basically, if you look at the structure of Geothermica, and Hjalti Patri showed this before, we have these two parallel work streams, this two-tier approach. We're working on the joint calls on the top arrows, and we're also working in parallel on these additional activities or joint activities, if you want, which are focusing on knowledge exchange, strategy, and also support of the geothermal sector. And in the end of the day, the main goal of Geothermica is accelerating geothermal energy as well as the heating. For that, we are focusing, I would say, this part of the activity not only on innovation and on innovation projects, but we really take the broader scope of innovation and implementation, because at the end of the day, we work on innovation because we want that to propel the energy and the heat transition. So if it doesn't lead to implementation, it's no use. And therefore we need these activities, these additional activities, to make sure the things can land. Aspect here that is that we involve basically all member states and regions that are part of Geothermica in these activities, supported by Geothermica Office, of course, but really have this broad involvement of all the partners in Geothermica, being it ministries or funding agencies, really have that one, let's say, involvement. Next, please. So maybe just shortly, and Gunni already pointed this out, but I think graphically this is a nice picture I like very much because it shows the importance of heat, let's say, in the energy system of Europe. And the orange parts of the circles are the part defined energy use in the different countries. And what you can see is really that heating and cooling, and some part of them in the black electricity part, because through let's say air conditioning units. But if you take that together, it's definitely the biggest share. So yeah, like Gunni pointed out, we really need a heat transition in Europe. If we want to decarbonize our total energy system, we need to work on heating and cooling issues as well. We need to find solutions there. And for that, geothermal energy, in combination with seasonal storage, that can be large-scale underground storage, in combination with other renewable heating resources, is really crucial. I think this can drive that transition, and that the good thing I would say about this is that really it has enormous potential, and this potential is also local and regional. So you have a regional and local solution to your don't have to import electricity or hydrogen or whatever far away. So in most cases, if you have the resource available, if you have possibilities, it's the cheaper solution. So that is a thing to keep in mind. And having said that, the other element here is that, of course, we have this large seasonal variation in heat demand, especially in, let's say, in our latitudes. So we really have a summer and winter difference. And basically, if we could store the heat from the summer into the winter and use it in the winter and vice versa, use the cold of the winter in the summer, we would have solved much of our issues and much of our challenges. Next slide, please. So what we are doing, and I must say I cannot see the slide full screen. I hope the viewers can see it. But what we are doing in these initiatives, basically to work on making it happen, working on getting geothermal and getting the heat implemented. And here we have two work streams again. Next, please. And the first is, and this was part of the discussion, I think, Michael, you were asking before, and we're discussing with Hjalti. Yes, an important element here is the interaction between the member states and regions. So the interaction between the partners of Geothermica, being the ministries, being it funding agencies, where we take on certain challenges together and try to solve them, or helping each other out. So that is important. However, we do not only do that, we are also interacting with the broader, let's say, community, the research community, and the industrial community, of course, with our project, through the monitoring and through other activities, but also with a broader, let's say, community. And that would be the second stream of additional activities that we develop, and that are really kind of tackling, let's say, either barriers or taking on opportunities together with the sector, very dedicated actions to evolve and to really make that change happen. And I will now give the floor to my German colleague Stefan to tell you a bit more about these activities. And I will come back after that. Stefan.
Yeah, hi, also from my side. Next slide, please. Yeah, as Paul already stated, we have two streams in our work package. The first stream is addressing our member states, the funding agencies, the program owners and managers which are in Geothermica, to create an additional benefit for us in the consortium, I would say. This first task we performed there was a continuation from our work started almost 10 years ago in the geothermal ERA-Net. Back then, we started to map the national barriers, opportunities, and RD&D needs in the field of geothermal energy. And first, the idea was to find common ground for joint calls, of course. But later, we wanted to align our funding approaches better into further additional activities. In the partner countries, and the outcome of that was then clustered in an interactive workshop where we came together. You see that in the photo. And the results were then post-processed and published in a public report, which built the base for most of the following actions. So far, we have done this process twice, so it's updated regularly. Next slide, please. Yeah, while identifying our common ground, we saw in the consortium there's a lack of information on the funding activities in the partner countries. to get a more efficient use of public funding, to see where specific topics are already addressed and where existing results can be transferred to other countries. We created a joint project database of funding projects within the member states. This is updated on a yearly basis, and this is really only for the consortium, so we can see what's going on in the other countries. So it's for the member states only, and so far the update is still in progress for this year, but we have close to 200 projects to see what's going on. Next slide, please. Yeah, in this process, we've seen the enormous bandwidth of research funding for geothermal energy. And we also wanted to create something public to show how the member states are supporting geothermal energy. Therefore, we created our joint project showcase, presenting selected projects from the partner countries, which are displayed on a nice map, where you can also access additional information on the projects. And this is publicly accessible via our website, geothermica.eu. Next slide, please. Yes, in addition, we fostered the direct interaction on specific topics by creating working groups within the consortium. For example, parts of the consortium used the knowledge on already existing guarantee schemes in the Netherlands and France to set up their own guarantee funds. This is an example how we help each other out for the benefit of all, as Gudni already stated. We also created working groups on geothermal in urban areas or geofood, how to process and produce food using geothermal energy. Next click button, please. Yeah, all these activities allowed the multilateral knowledge exchange within the consortium and led to support of partners where it was desired. So this created the atmosphere of trust together with the trustful behavior during the call processes, and it worked. Yeah, next please. Yeah, the second part of our activities should bring additional benefit to the sector. We created actions focused on specific topics, mostly coming out of this barriers and opportunities exercise I described before. One click, please. For example, in our Opera workshop on the Dutch-German border, we focused on operational issues of geothermal installations. One more click. We invited around 50 operators, researchers, and regulators from all countries to a 2-day workshop to discuss the most pressing issues, possible solutions, and ideas for cooperation in the field of geothermal operations. Another workshop was the new concept workshop took place in Geneva. This was a kind of brainstorming of the whole sector. One more click, please. Where the whole sector discussed new ideas which can bring geothermal forward. Next slide, please. Besides our some other smaller workshops we did, we organized a strategic roundtable on geothermal, where the main players of the geothermal sector from all fields discussed the future of geothermal. Most important for the success of such events is to include a little bit of entertainment in these workshops. One more click. For example, in this case, we had a visit of Sinterklaas in the Netherlands after a hard day of discussions to loosen up the atmosphere a little bit. All these workshops, including the fun parts, created an atmosphere where the member states, industry and research realized that we are on the same track to the same goals, and going jointly is beneficial for all. Next slide, please. Yes. In addition to the workshops, we are present at the most relevant conferences to talk to the projects we already fund. One more click, please. And we are there as having a booth there to talk to everybody who's planning to set up a project, and we're there for the already funded projects. 2 more clicks, please. Furthermore, we are now preparing a website which came out of the Opera workshop I showed you before. We are summarizing the outcomes of the workshop together with country-specific information on operational issues, and more important, on the solutions which are available around Europe. And this is accessible then for the sector. So for the last slides, I want to hand over to Paul again.
Yeah, thank you very much,
Try
Stefan.
to come to an end so that we have still time for questions. Thanks. Very good timing. Thanks a lot.
No worries. There will be 3 more slides I want to share with you, and then we can go into questions. So the last here, let's say this work stream is the strategic cooperation and the broadening of the consortium. You already heard about that we are broadening the consortium even into these recently, but also the strategic cooperations with building up strategic cooperation with the relevant stakeholders and institutions. For instance, there is very close contact with the Deep Geothermal Implementation Working Group. Many of our members are also part of that group, and 2 of our members are in the cabinet, Gerdy Breembroek being the chair, the present chair of that group. But we also closely cooperate with the ETIPs on deep geothermal renewable heating. We are an observer to their close contact. We work closely together with IEA Geothermal. For instance, the new concept workshop that Stefan mentioned was organized jointly with IEA TCP Geothermal. Of course, we cooperate with you, the SDS, ERA-Net, now on the joint call on heating and cooling, which is exciting and very nice, I think. But also, clearly, we have these direct links into the research community through ERA, Joint Program on Geothermal Research, and EGEC, the European Geothermal Energy Council, and last but not least, the International Geothermal Association, IGA. So that is, I think, also a very important aspect to keep, let's say, somehow the sector, or to get the sector better aligned. Next, please. So coming to the conclusions, what are the effects and the added value of these activities? Well, I think what is important is that we have a direct knowledge exchange and strategic exchange directly between our partners, between the Geothermica member states and regions. That is really very helpful and really helps to propel geothermal energy and the heat transition. Then also we have created a direct channel into relevant stakeholder organizations, really one-on-one, very directly. And then I think these activities that we are organizing, they are also a source of creativity. You know, many new ideas come up here, and you know, that also helps to create a joint vision. And by doing that, we have been able to really set the agenda on a national level, European level, global level, I would also through the projects on a local and regional level. And the good thing is the relevant topics we can directly address through the Geothermica network. And last but not least, we have been able to unite the sector much more than it was before. Next, and this should be the last slide. Yes.
Perfect.
So in
Paul, we
conclusion,
should come to the questions. We are already over time.
Yeah, I will just do it very shortly. We have active member state involvement. I think that through the AA additional activities is crucial. We do more than only formalities, really working together. And this is only possible through a decentralized, dedicated topic-specific action. That's our opinion here. We create this atmosphere for joint efforts. And in that way, we are able to propel geothermal and the heating and cooling transition. Crucial, has been said before by others, but also I will repeat, is the trust and the understanding and friendship we have been able to build up over the last years, and the drive and dedication of all the partners. And with that, I will leave it to you, Michael, for the questions.
Thank you, Paul and Stefan. I think we have some questions to you. And before we go to the questions, I want to announce that we will end the session very sharp on 12:40, because we will then try for the first time to use our concept of the audience microphone to take in Chiara with her discussion that she raised in the chat. This will be part of the final session then that we have planned. So we are sticking to the plan. I just announced that we will stick very clearly to it, because we will try out also this new concept, so we are not flexible. One question that I have, it was a very interesting presentation. Thanks also about the need of energy transfer over the seasons. My question is, you said it was a discussion of the whole sector, and my question is, what is the target audience of your additional activities? Is it more your funding partners, the partners of your network, or is it more the stakeholders out there? Because if you say the whole sector, then I would guess that's a number of utilities also. And how do you reach out to them?
Yeah. So basically, it's both. Like Stefan, I hope we do both activities. So dedicated between the partners, like the guarantee scheme that we helped each other out, that's purely a public thing. But the other activities out, so they're involved in the whole sector. For instance, there is this, one of the major flagship projects, I would say, is the heat store project, which is basically demonstrating now in different countries, different concepts. I would say half of the network is involved in that project, but also here a roadmap. So typically we would either big conference or at a separate, we will take on and invite people, typically in a setting where we can create an atmosphere and really have an open exchange. So not hundreds of people, but a dedicated, we can really kind of get aligned and create a joint way forward.
6 minutes left. Thank you, Paul. I saw two interesting questions from the chat also about the impact of projects and the tangible results about the outputs. Nicholas, maybe you can bring that up. What are the tangible and intangible outputs of the meetings described in the additional activities? Tangible outputs, I described it clearly. That's the value of the network. Are there also some reports or what we normally call the tangible outputs?
Oh yeah, but for sure. I mean, if people are interested, they should go to the website geothermica.eu. You'll find all the reports basically of all the actions we did there. Most of them have some public summary or public report and a lot of. But in terms of real spin-off, I would mention that, for instance, Denmark and a risk mitigation scheme due to the help of, let's say, the other Geothermica partners, that's a very direct spin-off. Another thing is, I would say more in general, that we've been able to put heat transition and heating and cooling transition position on the European agenda, much more also things like the importance of seasonal storage is becoming, at least in the Netherlands, but I see it happening in other countries, more and more on agenda, and that it has definitely to do with, let's say, project like Heat Store, where we also organize activities around.
So Susanne also asked in the chat, how do you foster the impact of projects? Is the additional activities, I think that's also related to that aspect, right?
Yes, maybe one word on let's say the monitoring and the knowledge community or the interaction between projects. So we did not organize a dedicated event to that. We rather did make sure that our projects would all be present at larger geothermal conferences. So that's a place where the whole community meets, and then like a dedicated direction, and that works very well. We try to link it to these kind of events rather than separate events.
Yeah, very important. I understand these yearly events where you bring everyone together. I think that's something for the community. 3 minutes left. Fredrik and Gerdi, some questions from your side. At the same time, I say that after these last questions, we will relieve Stefan and Paul from the studio, as we have limited places in the studio in order to be able to take Chiara into the studio. I just want to let you know.
Okay. I'll leave the floor to Fredrik because it's my I'm involved in this work. So please.
Thank you, Fredrik. Maybe you might have
add something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, maybe you could have had some really insightful questions from the inside. No, thank you very much, Paul and Stephen, for the presentation. I guess what you've said also replied a little bit of one of the earlier questions, how to support the impact of the project in relation to the output from the project that is in the project monitoring. And I guess because a lot of the additional activities I could see is related to the outer community. So maybe my question that I would ask is, and maybe it's a little bit in line with what Michael was touching upon before also, the stakeholder, the target group, because some of the activities can be very much directed to this community outside of yours, but other can be really involving the funding partners more. Which one, because you have elements of both, which one do you think is the most important for an ERA-Net or for this kind of to put the effort on? Is it to increase the collaboration between the funding partners, or if you had to choose, or is it to increase the collaboration with the outer world from the funding partner community?
Short answer, only 1 minute.
Yeah, I think it's equally important. You need this cooperation within the consortium that you help each other out. And at the same time, it's very important that's what it was called by Paul, unite the sector. Every stakeholder should know that the member states are part of the sector and we are heading for the same goal. So we are not the opponents where you get your money from. We want the same and we want to assist you, but there are some rules which had to be followed, and therefore they have to know these rules. But this is equally important, I would say.
Thanks, Paul. Last sentence from your side to this question.
Thank you very much.
I fully agree. You know, I think you really have to do both, so don't forget that.
Thank you very much. We are absolutely in time. Thank you very much for this presentation and the discussion. We will now say goodbye to Paul and Stefan from the studio, and we will now try to get Chiara in from for the audience microphone. At the same time, we will have, I think, Gudni reconnecting for the final discussion, and Gerdi and Fredrik stay in the studio. So what was your impression so far from this meeting? Yeah, it's interesting that each of the networks, I mean, of course, we have somehow elements that are similar in every network, but the communities are specific. To me, it seems that, of course, the geothermal world is built of more or less, how to phrase it? I mean, a number of companies and so and players that is not too big. I mean, we don't have the big issue of, okay, how can you involve the people from the street or something like that you might have in with the topic of energy communities or these kind of things. But of course, you also have relations or need relations to stakeholders for the implementation, like cities or so. Is there an activity where you particularly are connecting to city governments or so?
Well, maybe I can say something to that. This is something that is not so much in focus, I would say, of the Geothermica network. But the funded project, of course, they are they are taking place in the real world and have to connect to cities in some cases. So there is an involvement, and we have also had a workshop, the workshop that we were referring to, the roundtable on geothermal energy, involved a couple of city representatives that are interested to get their city on geothermal. So yeah, it's it's not a very clear answer. It's just
no, but it's good. I mean, it shows that here we also have, I think, very good points for possible interfaces with other initiatives. When we think about the initiatives we had last week of JPI Urban Europe, which have these strong partner networks with the cities, and in the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, we maybe can connect to these networks that they have when we build up a collaboration with these other partnerships. So I think these are very interesting aspects.
Yes.
I hear from our regie that it seems that we get the audience microphone with Chiara working. I think she's still struggling with the audio a little bit, but let's try. We always had this in mind, but with the first two events, we were busy with other things, so we were not able to do this. We see Chiara now already. Hello, Chiara. Welcome. And it's a very good opportunity that we can take up the intervention that you have made via the chat into the last final discussion round that we have. So could you try to rephrase what you have written in the chat here for the discussion? And maybe you can close your YouTube while you're in the studio now.
Okay, I'm here. Hello, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me.
Well, very good.
Hello. I would just like to just express my previous comment, just to make it clearer for you. And so my comment is regarding some technical mechanism, as I already said, related to selection procedure that we see in Geothermica ERA-Net. So the main problem, the main issues, I think that is the national eligibility evaluation and selection should be done during the first one of the call. We know that our joint calls have the two-step procedure, and yes, and it is very fine. So the approach adopted in Geothermica first joint call, so it's my experience because we have participated in the first joint call. Yes, is that one. So after the evaluation carried out by the international expert in phase 2, maybe a further national evaluation was carried out. So some funding agency have excluded some projects, not for the eligibility reason or the financial availability, but maybe for other consideration, internal consideration maybe. And this is not absolutely wrong in principle, but I think that this kind of evaluation have been done in the first phase. So because in the first phase of call, we can to have a national eligibility check, and then to send the all eligible proposal to the international evaluation. So once this eligibility check is done, yes, at this point, I think that the main issue is the international evaluation. So in the second step, when the evaluation is done and finished and definitive, I think it is not possible to have a further national evaluation in the content of projects. That's why we think that this kind of national evaluation can take place only in the first phase of the call, but not in the second one. I think that could be a good suggestion for the future for our joint call in this partnership. I don't know.
These are very valid points, and I think it's, of course, I mean, we will not be able to deal with this individual case here, but I think it's very interesting and important to bring these also very delicate topics somehow up. I mean, in the 10 minutes that we have, not even, we will not be able to provide a full answer to that. But I think also to bring on the table the critical issues that we have with these kind of collaborations, and at least show you that we are open and really interested to find ways for this is, to me, very important. So let's see what we can say to this here in the round. Who wants to start?
Yes, I might like to start with this because Chiara, thank you for your intervention here. You are quite right that this should be in the right order, that eligibility tests come first, and then the international evaluation comes in the second stage. Of course, if you're looking at the two-stage program, we are not seeing the same product in the second phase as in the first phase. So there may be some. There has to probably to be a renewed eligibility check, but it should definitely come in front of the international evaluation. And I think, but it's very important, and I think that this is what we discussed after the first round, that we had to improve, and mostly this was due to maybe lack of communication within each member state between the applicants from the state and those who administered it. So that I think that is absolutely right, that this is one of the things we have to observe and improve.
So maybe also to take it away from the individual case, because I have to commit that of course I think at least in the networks that I've been working, and that was at the beginning of the ERA-Nets, also ERA-Net hydrogen, ERA-Net PV, and so on. I mean, these are problems that we face not too often, but this is exactly what is the challenge for this kind of collaboration, to harmonize and to coordinate all these many funding partners in the background. And the problem is, many times, at least to my experience, that of course you have very engaged persons there, but they have huge institutions behind them, and sometimes they don't manage to coordinate or to synchronize their national processes. That's why sometimes issues that seemed already have to be solved come up later on in the process again. And to synchronize all these processes is really challenging. It's not depending on single persons. I think most times they are doing really a great job, but they have the burden that they have institutions and national processes behind them that they try to accommodate and to make ready. And sometimes they have to personally bridge the gap between the transnational and collaboration processes and their national processes, and sometimes they have a big burden with that. So that's the challenge. But it also shows that the importance of these different steps that we have to undergo, Of course, the national eligibility, it's a technical thing, and it's important that, I mean, really, maybe you want to say something also about this, because what I personally think that we also found out that it's twofold. I mean, one thing is the communication among the funding partners that have to streamline these processes, but the other thing is also to have a very good training for all the partners how to advise their applicants very early in the process, so that then also the availability check at the end maybe becomes less important, as you can inform the applicants already very early in the process, and they find out very early what is accepted and what not.
Yes, sorry, just to further remark, I absolutely agree with you, Michael. So yes, you are totally right. But that's why I think now there are two steps also for the eligibility check. And yes, in the second step, we can, as a national funding agency, we can check once again our partners that pass the first phase, and to check once again the eligibility conditions, and then to send the really eligible projects to the final evaluation step. So we have two times two chance, you know, and so in the second phase, when we decided that definitely a project is eligible, well, when he is selected by an external expert, scientific expert, then I think it's very important to respect the decision of international evaluation, and not to modify once again the ranking list or this decision for national reasons. Because we have two steps of eligibility.
Our collaborations are built on, I agree. Gerdie, Fredrik, something that you want to add here?
I mean, I might add, I think what Gudni said, I fully agree on all of it. And I think also what both you, Chiara, and Michael said, we have similar experience with a lot of tricky cases in ERA-Net Smart Energy System. And I think what you pointed out, Michael, is really in the core of it, because you can have the perfect process, but we have to recognize also that each funding partner do have their decision process, and it doesn't look the same in every country. And we need to make not only the person working as a representative for the funding agency, but also make it easy for the funding agency to understand what process they commit to. So it's not the burden only on that person, but that the institution understands the process, because otherwise sometimes it might happen of one reason or another that this doesn't work out, and then the problem might be left after the international expert evaluation. I don't know if this was the case in the specific case here, but I know that is always a tricky thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And then of course another thing which for the co-fund, which I think all of us experience, is that we also then of course have to keep it to because we have the commission and the funding from the commission that also gives us basically no flexibility in case such a problem derives late in the process, because sometimes it might also of course be that it's a clear ineligibility, that maybe there was something in the national application that is not fundable, and then of course the funding partner need to be able to they cannot make a decision that is not correct. So but we want that to be cleaned out before.
Final remark from you, Gerdie. I would propose that we take only 1 or 2 minutes on this, and then go into a final wrap up with about the geothermica.
Yes, well, I agree to what you've said. It is a process where there's a lot of communication that needs to be done and needs to be undertaken in order to get it as good as possible. And I agree with you that the institutions behind the we use to participate in these calls are crucial there, and can result in surprises that nobody wants. And the communication is the only way to get that right, and a clear schedule of when we when we need to say that projects in second phase are eligible, it's also quite important to take sufficient time there and to focus, to exclude as best as we can that things like that happen. But
thank you all for also taking this delicate issue on. Chiara, so nice to have you on the virtual stage here. So I want
Thank
to
you
give
too.
an opportunity. Have you had the chance to watch already also other of the three events, or is it the first one that you are joining?
Yes, it's the first one actually.
Okay.
Yes, but yes, I can sure to participate in the next one. Yes.
Yeah, cool. I just wanted to ask. So, what is your impression about the format and the discussions? some proposals.
I think that this format is really very good. So, yes, congratulations. That's what I can say. I no particular suggestion for the moment. I can reflect more on that, but yes, it's very good now.
Also in some of the other meetings. So there's a number of them until mid-March scheduled. Gudni, how did you like the discussions and the questions today?
Yeah.
Do you think we have learned something?
Okay.
Nothing new, but at least we were able to bring the important things on the table, I think, and we can take them from here to our design discussion for the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, right? Do we have Yaltip back in the studio? No, I think not anymore, right? Oh yeah, he's there.
I'm here on the site. Yes,
Yeah.
that's been a very interesting discussion, and yeah, I hope that we at least conveyed our message, what we think is important, and what we think have worked well, and what needs to be sort of taken aboard to further partnerships and work. And I really hope that we will be able to make some very successful and efficient cooperation.
Very good. Very interesting input we got for the discussions, further discussions on the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. With the new initiative in the strategic agenda we have, I think geothermal energy placed very strategically important. So will your organizations, the team that is running the Geothermica network now, will be committed to help running the Clean Energy Transition Partnership?
I think so. Yeah, at least I will be.
That would be cool. Yeah, I think
I will do what I'm told.
Very good. Yeah, of course, you're not fully free here. Maybe, yeah, but what do you think, Gudni? Can we count on Iceland and your team in the management of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership?
Yeah, we have said already that we very much like to try this out and to make this happen. And I think that all my partners in the Geothermica, they are working for full engines to make this happen, because we see it as a very valuable breakout activity from the Geothermica work to link to other parts, and of course to come into the energy system discussion is very important, because very many people talk about energy systems and they mean electricity systems. We have been struggling for a very long time to explain that the energy system involves many other things than electricity, and geothermal is one of them. And it's very important that we who are outsiders, have been outsiders, get a say here and get come into the cooperation, because I think this will make way for effective and cost-effective solutions in the future.
Thank you, Gudni. I think that's a perfect final statement for this event of today. For all the people out there, please stay tuned. with the next events. Many interesting organizations and initiatives will show their experiences. We'll have a lot of interesting discussions, and very important, if you have something that you want to tell us, if you have an initiative that you want to present, if you have a national or regional program format that you think is very successful and could really help also this initiative to boost the energy transition, please let us know, write us, join us, and show up here in the chat. We want to take up all of this and bring it on the table. We need every knowledge and we need everyone. So everyone that wants to engage in the new partnership, help running this big animal that we are preparing, please come to this group, to this discussion now. We want to hear your voices. We want to see your faces, and we want to learn about your existence, about your profile, and we will be very interested to collaborate with you. Thank you very much for today. Thank you very much for the Geothermica Network, all the speakers and presenters. Thank you for making it possible, even if it was really a hassle for you. Thanks for keeping the faith and for doing it today. Thank you for my co-moderators, Gerdi and Fredrik. And we see each other next Friday.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. And for the Icelandic and Dutch people, I see you in half an hour. Let's continue the work.